The Bible is not just a book. It's a world of miracles, battles, faith, and redemption. But have you ever seen it come to life? Did you know that Hagar's story in the Bible reveals deep themes of struggle, faith, and resilience? Welcome to Bible Stories with UG, where timeless Bible stories are brought to life with stunning visuals, dramatic sound, and unforgettable lessons. Do well to subscribe, like, comment and share. Let's dive into the story. UG tells it like it was straight from scripture. The story of Hagar, an Egyptian servant, is interwoven with the great patriarch Abraham, then Abram, and his wife Sarah, then Sarai. Her tale begins in the ancient land of Canaan around 2000 BC and is recorded in Genesis 16, 21, and 25. Chapter 1. The Waiting Womb and the Desperate Plan, Genesis 16. Abram and Sarai had lived in Canaan for 10 years, trusting in God's promise that Abram would be the father of many nations. Yet Sarai remained barren. She was aging, her womb closed, and hope seemed distant. In her desperation, Sarai devised a plan common in ancient Near Eastern custom. She would give her Egyptian maidservant, Hagar, to her husband as a surrogate. Any child born through Hagar would be considered Sarai's own. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Genesis 16, 2. Abram agreed. Hagar, likely a young woman with little say in the matter, became pregnant. But when she conceived, the dynamics changed. Hagar looked down on Sarai with contempt, and Sarai became bitter and jealous. The emotional tension boiled over. Sarai complained to Abram, who told her to do as she saw fit. Sarai then mistreated Hagar, and in deep distress, Hagar fled into the wilderness, alone and pregnant. Chapter 2. The God Who Sees Me, Genesis 16, 7-16. In the harsh solitude of the desert near Shur, Hagar had a divine encounter. An angel of the Lord found her beside a spring. This moment is one of the most remarkable in Scripture. It is the first time an angel appears in the Bible, and it is to a foreign, pregnant slave girl. The angel called her by name, Hagar, slave of Sarai, and asked, "Where have you come from, and where are you going?" She replied honestly, "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai." Then the angel gave her a difficult instruction. "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." Yet the message came with a profound promise. "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. You are now pregnant and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael," meaning, God hears, for the Lord has heard of your misery. The angel also gave a prophecy about her son. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. In awe and humility, Hagar gave a name to God, ROI, the God who sees me. I have now seen the one who sees me. Genesis 16:13. This makes her the first person in the Bible to name God. She returned to Abram and Sarai, gave birth to Ishmael, and Abram was 86 years old. Chapter 3. Attention reignited. Isaac and Ishmael, Genesis 21. Years passed. When Abram was 99, God changed his name to Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. God fulfilled his promise. Sarah gave birth to Isaac. Now the stage was set for further conflict. Sarah, after years of suffering and jealousy, finally had her own child, and she did not want Ishmael to share in Isaac's inheritance. During a feast for Isaac, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking, and she was furious. "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Genesis 21:10. Abraham was distressed, for Ishmael was his son. But God told him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." Genesis 21:12-13. With a heavy heart, Abraham gave Hagar some bread and water and sent her and Ishmael into the desert of Beersheba. Chapter 4. God hears again. The desert despair and divine rescue. Genesis 21:14-21. Wandering in the scorching wilderness, the water ran out. Hagar placed her son under a bush and walked a distance away, saying, "I cannot watch the boy die." She sat down and wept. But God heard the cries of Ishmael. An angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. "Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She filled the skin and gave Ishmael a drink. From that day, God was with Ishmael. He grew up in the wilderness, became an archer, and lived in the desert of Paran. Hagar later found him a wife from Egypt. Chapter 5. Legacy and Reflection, Genesis 25. Ishmael would become the father of 12 sons, rulers of 12 tribes. His descendants would spread and grow into a great nation, just as God had promised. Though often viewed through the lens of Isaac's covenantal lineage, Ishmael too was blessed, and Hagar's story remains a powerful testimony of God's compassion for the outcast, His ability to hear the brokenhearted, His promise to care for all His children, even those outside the chosen lineage. Here are powerful and well-detailed lessons from the story of Hagar in the Bible, drawn from her experiences in Genesis 16 and 21. These lessons carry spiritual, emotional, and practical insights for modern life. Lessons from the story of Hagar in the Bible. 1. God sees the forgotten and the rejected, ROI, the God who sees me. When Hagar fled into the wilderness, feeling used, abused, and abandoned, God met her there. Not in a palace, but in a desert. He called her by name and spoke directly to her. Lesson. Even when others forget you, mistreat you, or devalue you, God sees you, knows your pain, and meets you in your lowest moments. You are not invisible to Him. 2. God hears the cries of the brokenhearted, Ishmael, God hears. When Hagar placed her son under a bush to die and wept from despair, God heard the boy's cries and sent help. Lesson. In moments of helplessness, God listens to your deepest cries, even the ones you cannot put into words. He responds with mercy and provision. 3. Our identity is not limited by our circumstances. Hagar was a slave, a foreigner, and a woman with no status. Yet God spoke directly to her, gave her a promise, and she became the first person to name God in the Bible. Lesson. Your past, background, or social status does not define your worth. God gives identity and dignity to those the world overlooks. 4. God can bless even in broken situations. Hagar's pregnancy was not from love but from human manipulation. Yet God still blessed her son Ishmael and made him into a great nation. Lesson. Even in messy, painful, or unjust circumstances, God can still bring forth blessing and purpose. He redeems brokenness. 5. Obedience isn't always easy, but it leads to God's provision. The angel told Hagar to return and submit to Sarah, even though it was difficult. Later, she left when God allowed her to, and He provided water and guidance. Lesson. Obedience to God may involve hard decisions, but it opens the door to divine protection, provision, and direction. 6. God has a plan for every child. God promised Hagar that Ishmael would become a great nation. Ishmael was not the child of the covenant like Isaac, but God still had a specific destiny for him. Lesson. Every child, regardless of how they came into the world, is valuable to God and has a purpose. 7. God's compassion reaches across all nations and cultures. Hagar was Egyptian, outside of God's chosen people, yet she received divine visitation and a prophetic promise. Lesson. God's love is not limited by race, nationality, or social class. He cares for all people and works through those the world excludes. 8. Trust God even when you're in the wilderness. Hagar experienced God's faithfulness in the desert, both in Genesis 16 and 21. Lesson. When you're in a season of dryness, loneliness, or survival, God is still present. The wilderness is often where we see His power and provision most clearly. 9. God gives hope in hopeless moments. Just when Hagar believed her son would die, God opened her eyes to see a well of water. Lesson. What we perceive as the end may be the beginning of God's intervention. Sometimes, we just need our eyes open to His provision. 10. Your pain can lead to purpose. Hagar's suffering led her to an encounter with God and to a name for God that remains timeless, ROI. Lesson. Pain can be a pathway to a deeper understanding of God. The darkest moments may reveal His character more clearly than any sermon or scripture. Kindly subscribe, like, comment and share if you enjoyed watching this video. Genesis 16:13. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are El Roi," for she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me."